What is going on, everyone? Before we get into this podcast, I want to let you know about Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community where millions come together to take a step in their creative journey. It is $10 a month, and it is on-demand access to thousands of online classes where you get taught by experts. If you're into music, if you're into InDesign, if you are into graphic designing, painting, writing, this is the place for you. You get an opportunity to advance your skill set. If you want to learn more, if you are so dedicated to a craft, but you need to know more information on how to really do it and how to grow in that skill, well, it's simple. You go on to Skillshare, and this allows you to dive into it deeper. It allows you to, on your own time, to get all of this information and take it in. Take it in from millions of people out there with so many different unique ways to learn it. There's not just one way to learn things. This isn't math. There are plenty of different ways to utilize your skills. And you can take so much information from so many different teachers and apply it into your own style, your own unique way. So make sure you use the link in the description. The first 1,000 viewers get 2 free months of Skillshare Premium.
Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
The draft is officially over, and I need to give my props to the NFL, Roger Goodell, even though he made me cringe at times, to make it happen, and to make it happen as smooth as it did go down. I gotta really applaud everyone that works with the NFL, the behind-the-scenes people, to get the draft out to the public like they did. There were some times where people talked over each other and whatnot, but that's very small, okay? To be able to execute it the way that they did during a time like this, I really do have to tip my cap and give them some claps here because I appreciate them. They gave us what we needed throughout this time. They gave us a little bit of sports, a couple days to relax and just enjoy football conversation, meaningful football conversation. Not so much about, oh, remember 1992, remember 1968. No, it is relevant, and it was really beautiful to watch the last 3 days. I think they could have benefited to what Adam Schefter said a few weeks back, maybe a 7-day system and have it on all the networks, all the platforms, people would be watching without a doubt. But seriously, I really did appreciate everything they did. Before we talk about rounds 4 through 7 and a little bit more of Jalen Hurts, because I'm not going to lie, I'm not over it, I need to let you know about Ravens Brew Coffee. You know me. If it's 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 11 o'clock at night, I'm thinking about coffee. I know, I'm crazy, but that's what I do. And Ravens Brew Coffee is the best coffee that ever touched my lips. I'm not lying. Check it out yourself. The link is in the description. Ravens Brew Coffee, the best coffee to touch my lips. All right, so I am not over the Jalen Hurts thing. I'm sorry, I will never defend the move. I thought Jalen Reagor was a solid pick. I really enjoyed what Howie Roseman did in rounds 4 through 7. Now, I do believe that there's a lot of hype surrounding certain players, and you need to realize these guys aren't all going to hit. All right, you're not going to come out with 75,382 different speed receivers. That's not how it works. You're picking a lot of options. You're throwing a lot at the wall and seeing what sticks, and I thought that that was a reasonable way to approach this based off of what they ended up acquiring, but they're all not going to hit. I did like the philosophy, though, and you saw a little bit of Howie Roseman's greatness in terms of getting a comp pick and turning that into 4 picks. Very special. He also acquired Goodwin from San Francisco. Banged up, but all it took was 6-round swaps. You take that chance any day of the week. He does get banged up, and to think that he will stay healthy for 16 games this season, well, that would be naive to do it, so I wouldn't if I were you. But it was a good take a chance, take a risk. Maybe he's healthy at the right time for this team and helps this squad win a couple games. He's always good for a couple games where you're like, damn, if only he could actually stay healthy. Let's dive it back to the Jalen Hurts thing. I won't support it. Even if this team found a way to win 7 Super Bowls and Jalen Hurts was in a weird package 10% of the time and he's playing offensive tackle one play, the next formation he's a wide receiver, then he's playing quarterback in the third formation and Carson Wentz is lined up as a tight end and they get all funky with it. I will never support picking a player like that at 53 when this team needed so many other players. They could have got Denzel Mims. They could have got Fulton. They could have got the defensive end from Iowa. They could have got so many other players that were left on the board that would play every single down for the most part. Maybe that's a little aggressive, but they would be an everyday player that would play a significant amount of time. I will not say that that was a smart move at all. And then I hear the conversation with Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman talking to the media about what they did, and they're talking about the way he's going to be utilized. And here's the one quote, though, that really stood out to me. This is Doug Peterson. We are trying to develop depth and competition. The quarterback position is not immune to that. I went through that as a player. When you have Jalen Hurts on the board and we can add value to any position on a roster, we are going to do that. You just paid Carson how much money? You just guaranteed Carson Wentz how much money? And now you are bringing in competition that is not even needed. This isn't about Jalen Hurts, the acquisition. It's about where he was acquired. If this happened in the 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, it is nowhere even close to being blown up to this extent. But guess what? He was selected in the 2nd round, and that matters because you lost out on a player that can help out this roster. This, to me, is crap. You don't bring in a guy to compete with your franchise quarterback. This isn't to say Carson Wentz is soft, and it's not to mention anything about Nick Foles and what he went through mentally when teams went on runs, even though I feel like that's reasonable to bring up. This is about any team in the NFL having a franchise quarterback in his prime, 27 years old, getting paid over $100 million, and then you're bringing in competition for him. It makes no sense. And then here comes the Lamar Jackson comparison. So much about the Taysom Hill thing that got brought up. Now they're factoring in Lamar Jackson. This makes no sense. So Joe Flacco, who totally fell off by his last few seasons with Baltimore, they pick Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson weaves Joe Flacco out of a job, and pretty much, if you think about it, essentially out of the league. That's what's going to happen with Jalen Hurts? How does this relate? And now I feel like those 3 guys, Jeffrey Lurie and Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman, they're going to try and make sure that everybody knows they are the smartest group in the world. So they are going to force certain packages, force this philosophy every single chance they can, and be obnoxious about it. I liked the draft. I really did, except for that pick. And that pick was so powerful, it kills everything that Howie Roseman did afterwards. And it's a shame because I thought he made some really solid moves in this 3rd day. I thought he found some really solid picks, some players that are intriguing. I'm not going to claim that these guys are going to be absolutely outstanding, but they are intriguing in terms of where they picked these players and the upside that they could potentially reach. That's what I'm all about once you're hitting on these late players and drafting guys and just pretty much selecting certain players. It's about, hey man, he's got a good ceiling, and maybe he could play up to that potential, even though you selected him in the 6th round or the 5th round. That's what it's all about when you talk about those late round draft picks. And I thought Howie put on a clinic in the 3rd day. I really mean that. But let's talk about this Marquise Goodwin acquisition. It's someone that will definitely intrigue this offense and add a layer of speed. Everyone did. If you ran higher than a 4.4 in the 40 time, see you later. You're kicked out. You're not even allowed in the arena or in the stadium on Sundays. You're not even allowed at training camp, apparently. And that's one thing to think about. Training camp, OTAs, anything like that. Think about these rookies and these young players. They might miss out on some crucial time when it comes to learning the game at this level, getting the playbook, being out there and physically experiencing it. Not only physically, mentally experiencing it as well. Even though it's just training camp type stuff and it's more of summer workouts, it's still very impactful to a young player. I think with Goodwin, it's worth the risk. It is a very low risk, high reward scenario. It can help. I just don't know how I can sit here and expect him to be healthy. The thing is, though, and this is what I can pray for, if there's 16 games in the season, well, hey, we are now talking about longer seasons, so it's going to take me a little bit to start getting used to that as the NFL continues. But you talk about a season, right? If he could play 10, 11 regular season games and then be healthy for a playoff game, the second playoff game if the Eagles get there, that's realistically what I can hope for based off of what I have seen from him. But once again, if you're talking about swapping 6-round picks, yeah, I mean, really, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can maybe try and hit on one of those 3,000 receivers you took later on in the draft. See, last year when the Eagles had to rely on their practice squad guys, you didn't have speed. If some of these deeper picks end up making the practice squad, you're going to have guys that can fly, that can totally just be speed burners that run, and run. That's the intriguing thing. 4th round picks. Now, I loved the pick out of Clemson. Safety, Wallace. The dude is a dog. He's been a leader, and he can play a lot of different positions. We are talking about safety. We can put him in the box. Can he do a little bit of corner? Possibly. He's very versatile, and I love what he brings to the table. I think that could possibly be the steal of the Eagles. That is great value in the 4th round. I love his mentality. You already see him so hyped to be in a city like Philadelphia, talking and relating it to what it's like at Clemson with all those Clemson Tiger fans, and he's embracing Philadelphia, which is always cool to see, instead of seeing J.J. Arcega-Whiteside under an umbrella with his mom at training camp. I will never forget that scene. That scene told me everything. That picture of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside sitting in the shade under his mom's umbrella told me everything I need to know. And let me just ask this question. Is it possible that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside doesn't even make the football team? Now, I doubt that, considering that would be showing Eagles fans, the media, NFL fans, that the Eagles are giving up on a player that they just drafted last season. So that would be saying, hey, everyone, I was wrong. I don't think the Eagles do that. So they will force him out there first, okay? But also, what's going on with Alshon? Teams don't want him. And everyone was all pumped when they saw that Peter King article about how it's possible that Alshon Jeffrey will get traded during the draft weekend. I said nonsense. When you actually read the article, it showed no substance. There was nothing to it. It was just talking about how the Eagles would probably like to get rid of him because of the debacle that happened last year and the fact that he was injured. But okay, don't we all know that? Who would trade for this guy? And it didn't happen. But would he be on the team? My theory now is the Eagles are just going to stick with him, see what happens with his injury, and from there, move on. But I really do, getting back to Wallace, I don't know how I went from safety to the wide receiver room. I guess naturally with the Eagles, you consistently talk about the wide receiver room, especially after what happened in this 3rd day. Love the pick of Wallace. Then you got an offensive tackle from Auburn, Jack Driscoll. And it seems like he could be that swing guy. Another great value in the 4th round. This team lost depth on that line. But here's one thing that I can trust when it comes to this front office. Drafting linemen. Look at where Vitae was drafted. Late. He just got paid by the Detroit Lions. And oh, by the way, he was your left tackle in the Super Bowl when they won. And he was a big-time factor in that entire season when Jason Peters went down. Not only that, Sayamalo. He wasn't a high pick either. 3rd round. That's good value for a guy who's your starting left guard. This team finds offensive tackles later in the draft, and I really do like that. And I think that this kid can totally be something. He is intriguing. This is where the speed guy came into play in the 5th round. John Hightower, wide receiver from Boise. This kid flies. Now, could I beat him in a race? Possibly. But this dude flies. He's very intriguing. It's clear that they went out and tried to get everything they told us. Athletes who are fast as hell. So they are living up to their word in that sense. Everything but Jalen Hurts, they lived up to their word for the most part. They got speed, speed, and speed. And John Hightower is someone that would really be intriguing. Now, once again, when these drafts start coming in, these draft picks in the later rounds, 5th, 6th, 7th, everyone's talking about what they can be and their 40 time and their speed, and I think there is meaning behind that. But there's a reason why they're 6th-round picks and whatnot. Listen, do teams hit on 6th-round picks and they become good players? Absolutely. Tom Brady, he was a late-round pick. Antonio Brown, he was a late-round pick. So the theory of let's just throw stuff at the wall late and eventually, hopefully, one of these players will stick, I kind of like that philosophy. But don't get too sucked in and don't be too fooled on some of these late-round picks because, you see his speed and, we can do this. There's a reason why some of these players are playing at Boise State and all these other spots. It doesn't relate to, wow, all of these players that Howie picked, they have tremendous upside. There's going to be a ton of players that he drafted that are going to make big-time splashes this year. It's not how it works. So when we talk about how intriguing these players are and how they're projects, but maybe they can be this one day, just take it for a grain of salt. That's all. Take it with a grain of salt, that is. With that being said, this one, I feel because it's so emotional, there's possibly something there. And he's in the 6th round, Sean Bradley, linebacker from Temple. And his raw emotion, the reaction, being a South Jersey guy, playing at Temple, battling through adversity to get to Temple, and now making it into the NFL and playing at the Link once again, but this time on Sunday. I couldn't even imagine that feeling. And just from a competitive nature standpoint and from a passion standpoint, I just feel like he's going to give you 750 million% because he bleeds this city and bleeds this area. And I'm sure he grew up as an Eagles fan, always dreaming of playing for the Eagles. So, there's just something there that gives him an extra boost compared to, say, someone who's coming from, I don't know, Memphis or someone coming from Tennessee over to Philadelphia. I know if I had the chance to play for the Eagles, I'd be, shitting myself. Let's be real. I mean, let's just flat out say it. I'd be shitting myself. Of joy. Of joy, that is. This kid flies. Another 6th-rounder. Watkins from Southern Miss. Wow. I mean, just go look at him. Just go watch the tape. Watch the highlights. This dude is lethal when it comes to running. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking about guys who can just flat out run. They're not great at catching the football, though. It's not like tracking the ball is one of their strong suits. If they had that speed and could track the ball beautifully and could get off so well and do everything perfectly, they would not be where the Eagles drafted them, right? So they aren't the best when it comes to Carson Wentz just throwing a deep ball and them going to track it down. It doesn't work that way. But speed-wise, what did Howie Roseman want? That's what he wanted. In the 6th as well, Prince, offensive tackle, Auburn. There's a lot of talk about him. A lot of talk about how he slipped in the draft, and there were some things that caused him to fall, but in terms of body structure and what he possibly can turn into, they're saying he had talent that could have possibly put him higher up in the draft. Things fell apart for him, and it got to where he is now, but an upside. Once again, an upside. And then in the 7th, a defensive end from Stanford, but, nothing that really crazy pops or whatnot, in my opinion. They also added a 5th-rounder for the 2021 draft. They traded with the Dallas Cowboys. Process that. They drafted with the Dallas Cowboys. That's kind of sickening, isn't it? Now, it ultimately worked out for the Eagles, but come on now. That's just weird to say. I almost want to throw up in my mouth. All right, so I think this would be a perfect time to hit the 24/7 anytime hotline. This has been a wild weekend in terms of phone calls, and it was really awesome to see the voicemail box flood with calls. The phone number is 856-442-9805. It is open 24/7, of course, and you can leave your message whenever you'd like. Let's kick it off.
Hey, bro, it's Eddie. Day 3 of the draft. I feel a little bit better about Jalen Hurts, but I just wanted to know how you feel about Goodwin and a couple of the other picks. I heard the safety was pretty good and that linebacker was pretty good, but just want to hear about that trade from the 49ers and what's your opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is pretty simple. I think it's a no-brainer to try it out, considering what the Eagles have at the wide receiver position. I think it makes a ton of sense to say, hey, listen, here's a player. He's 29 years old. He's been banged up, but he is so fast. It's incredible. He played how many games in the last couple seasons? Okay, so in 2018, he played 11 games. In 2019, he played 9 games. So he missed some time, but you got to know that going in. If he can give you 11 games this year and find a way to play in the playoffs if the Eagles make the playoffs, then by all means, I think it's worth it. It's not going to kill you if it doesn't pan out like you wanted it to, but at the same time, it would be fantastic if he is able to be on the field for Carson or Jalen Hurts. I mean, I guess at this point, that has to be in the equation, no? Every time I talk about for Carson Wentz, it's for Jalen Hurts as well. So stupid.
Well, the draft's over, and Howie haters, shut the hell up. I understand that the Hurts pick was surprising. I wasn't happy with it at the time, at all. Now I've kind of come around to it completely, but aside from that pick, the rest of this draft, day 3, I think was a absolute masterclass in drafting from Howie Roseman. The receiving depth, the line depth, the secondary help, and Kayvon Wallace. Oh my God, that pick, just make him the 2nd round pick and make Jalen Hurts the 4th round pick. I don't care. Kayvon Wallace is a dog. This is an incredible draft, and I think we are going to look back at it as Howie's best draft. Fly, Eagles, fly. Thanks, bros.
Wow, that is strong. So I love the Wallace pick. I think he could be an impact player. And like I stated, probably the steal of the draft for the Eagles would be him if I had to choose right now. This is where, though, I think you need to maybe take a deep breath and say, okay, right now these players are intriguing. Fast. You'd mentioned the wide receiver depth, right? You mentioned some other players. We don't know if they're going to hit. You were probably saying the same thing when you saw Shelton Gibson's speed and other players during other drafts in the 6th, 7th round, 5th round. You can't get too excited on a couple highlights after the draft is over and when the draft is going on and say, you know, these players are going to automatically hit. We don't know if these players are going to automatically hit. These players could be the same as all the other crap players. I don't know if I can sit here and say that this is going to be Howie Roseman's best draft. I do like what he did. Like right now, not knowing anything, I feel like he did a good job and he picked players that have potentially higher value than where they were selected. But that doesn't mean to me that I'm all woohoo Howie Roseman. Now, to be fair, even when he picked Jalen Hurts, I wasn't saying to fire him. I said that it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, but that's an organizational pick. You don't just pick that as the GM and nobody else has a voice involved. This was an organizational pick. I'm not a Howie lover. I'm definitely not a hater either, but this is a little strong. And then you also mentioned, I got to throw this out there because you're not the only one, that you're starting to realize, okay, Jalen Hurts, that's a decent pick. You're getting brainwashed. You're not only getting brainwashed, but you're tricking yourself into believing that this was smart. This was not smart. This is not how you handle business in the NFL. As I stated, even if this somehow works out, this is not a recipe for success. This is not something that you do. It is just dumb as hell. People are going to start tricking their minds into saying, well, hold on, Carson gets injured, you got your backup quarterback. You don't pick him at 53. You lost out on someone who can make plays consistently every single game, all the time. Instead, you get a guy who's going to have a funky package. Trash.
Hey, bro, I thought today went so much better than yesterday. Getting speed is exactly what we needed at wide receiver and linebacker. Love the picks at wide receiver. And with the new wide receiver coach, I think we have a real shot at developing a threatening receiving core. They did an amazing job there. I think Howie Howie snapped out of it and said, today is our day. And I think they did a completely great job today, better than yesterday. Hopefully everything pans out for us. Go Birds.
I hope everything does pan out. The wide receiver coach, these receivers, someone's got to work out, right? Someone has to work out. If you drafted 30 receivers, just say, you would think one of them would turn into something special, if not a handful of them, right? So with this draft, you would think with how many receivers they picked and acquired someone like Marquise Goodwin as well, that they would be able to come up with speed, to come up with a good receiver core to help Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts.
And that's a wrap on the 2020 Eagles draft. What a strange 3-day extravaganza this has been. You talk about a roller coaster of emotions, from a little bit of confusion on Thursday night to pure pandemonium and wanting Howie Roseman lynched in the streets on Friday night, to everything's back hunky-dory and Howie's walking on water again on Saturday. Maybe the strangest 3-day draft I can remember in Eagles history. But getting back to Roseman, I repeat something that I said to you a couple weeks ago. Howie Roseman was intent on accumulating picks in this draft, which he did, and he was full out honest with the Eagles fan base. He wanted speed. And if you look at the picks today, that team can double as the backup for the Penn Relays. If you don't run under a 4.4, you're basically not going to play. So how this turns out, if God willing there is a season, I don't know. Nothing that's done today can overshadow the stench and the stain of the Jalen Hurts pick. But it kind of came together today. He salvaged it. And, you know, if it wasn't for that pick of Hurts, the Howie can't draft mantra may have had to have been dropped. Because overall,
I accidentally cut you off there, so I apologize. I'm pretty sure you were going to end with, if he ended up not picking Jalen Hurts, then the Howie crowd, the Howie can't draft crowd, would have to pretty much shut up. And I can't believe that actually happened. If you entered, I'm looking here at some of the options that were available. Van Jefferson was available, and it's tough to mention Denzel Mims and him because he's a wide receiver, but then you wouldn't have had to take a shot at one of these wide receivers in the 5th round, in the 6th round, and later on, and that could have opened up the door for maybe a cornerback, which, okay, Wallace can do that. He's so versatile, but they didn't really get a cornerback, and Howie talked about it in his little post-game press conference, or not post-game, but post-draft, and said, don't forget Darius Slay. He was part of the draft acquisitions, but not really, to be honest with you, because they didn't actually draft one. I digress. Looking at what was available, they could have got Logan Wilson. They could have got Bond. These linebackers could have made a difference. I'm looking at AJ, though, from Iowa, and I feel like he would have been great because the defensive end position needs depth. It needs help. And I feel like they can totally utilize a defensive end in Jim Schwartz's scheme. What do you say about that? So if you change Jalen Hurts for him, I am stoked. I'm stoked. I'm not believing that all these players are going to hit. I'm not taking it out of line. But I'm feeling really solid. Instead, it's tainted. I don't even know how to grade this. I always think about a grade, and what am I going to give him? Is it a B? Is it a B minus? Is it a C plus? I take that Jalen Hurts pick, and I will destroy the grade because of that. So I'm in the C territory. Sorry, it's that brutal of a pick.
Hey, bros. I was just wondering, with the Philadelphia Eagles selecting all these wide receivers, what do you think that they could possibly do with Greg Ward, as he has shown himself last season, and what he can bring this season? Is he fighting, obviously, for for a position on the field? What do you think his role is going to be this coming up season? And, or do you think he'll be traded? And do you also think Alshon Jeffrey will be traded?
I don't think Alshon's going to be traded. Nobody wants the money. He's so hurt. Imagine if the Eagles traded for someone with Alshon's contract. Well, okay, maybe the Eagles would have to eat a lot of the money, so that's hard to put that into context there. But say the Eagles traded and acquired a wide receiver who is so banged up, he can't even start the season, and he's got this big payday, and he's declining. Did they just do that with Goodwin? That just sparked a little bit of a light bulb in my brain, sort of, kind of, maybe. But Alshon's not a speed guy, so it's totally different. The Eagles were looking for speed. It just doesn't make sense for any team to go out and acquire someone who had that type of injury, and he's on the back nine, and he's getting paid a lot of money. I don't see how. Greg Ward, he's fighting for his life, and he probably won't make the team, and that's if these players can turn into something. But, I don't know. A practice squad guy once again and has to fight his way. He made some noise. Yeah, good for him. I was in the crowd of Greg Ward is not that good. It's just we were on that low of players, and he was catching the football. He was standard catching the football, but he's not special. You can have a ton of players do what he did, and if you add some of these speed guys to be able to do that, well, why can't they do that in the slot? Sure they can. I just mentioned how they're not great at tracking balls. Well, maybe they're able to use that speed in the slot area as well. I'm not this huge Greg Ward fan. If these players end up working out for the Eagles, and Deshaun stays healthy, and Alshon is back eventually, and Goodwin is on the field, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's in the mix, and you have the first-round pick in Jalen Reagor. I don't know where the spot is for him other than the practice squad, and at that point, other teams can come into play. I don't see big things happening with Greg Ward.
Yo, bros, it's Birds Nation _302. I'm going to say that this was a good draft. I know a lot of people were upset about the second round pick. I wasn't that upset at first. I gave it time, see what they could do, and I like the end results. So I think we have a good season coming up, especially with the undrafted free agents we just signed. Thanks for taking my call. Bye.
Yeah, I didn't hit on the undrafted guys yet. I saw some names. Running back, the Eagles didn't really prioritize the running back position, so maybe that works out. And they've had success with that in the past, and they do a good job, actually, with undrafted guys. TJ Edwards is going to make an impact on this football team, and he's someone who was undrafted. You ever hear of Corey Clement? I thought he had a big role in the Super Bowl season as well. So there's some names that are a little bit splashier than others in undrafted free agency terms, of course. We'll just have to keep an eye out on them.
What's up, bros? Just got finished watching the draft last night, and I slept on the Jalen Hurts pick. I'm not feeling too bad about it today because I think even though we used a second round pick on a quarterback, we won the Super Bowl because we had depth in a lot of positions, especially the quarterback with Nick Foles. And now Carson Wentz has that security blanket. If he does go down, we do have this really good quarterback that can come in if that's the case. And I get Denzel Mims was still on the board, but people forget that we still have Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey who's coming back later, and Greg Ward, plus the 49ers pick we got today. I forget his name, but I think his name is Goodwin or Godwin or something. But I think we're going to have a lot of speed and depth in our wide receiver room now. So overall, I'm okay with this quarterback pick. So yeah.
See, everyone's starting to wake up days later and think that it's some genius idea. First off, if Carson Wentz gets injured, Jalen Hurts is not stepping in as a rookie and saving the day. He's not that security blanket. You have a better chance of getting a veteran player who is out there looking for a contract to step in and be that to be that quarterback, and then you could have went out and gotten that wide receiver or that defensive end or that other player who will still help that veteran quarterback who you went out and acquired. I will never support this move. I will never, ever support that thought process. Even if they win 16 Super Bowls with this combination of the two. I know that's literally impossible, but you get my point. That's how much I will never support that type of move. Never.
Hey, Birds. So the draft, as of now, is completely concluded, and I think that overall the Philadelphia Eagles drafted pretty well. The only thing that I'm really left questioning and wondering about is that Jalen Hurts pick, but I think everybody is questioning that still. I don't know what Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson mean by quarterback factory, but there's not one team in NFL history that I can think of, at least, that has a quarterback factory. Like maybe the 49ers with Montana and Young, but they played at separate times. So I'm really confused with that. Overall, the Marquise Goodwin trade, I think that was a phenomenal move by the front office. We need speed at that position. 40-yard dash is 4.25. I think that it's a great pick. I think it's a great move by the Eagles front office to pick up Marquise Goodwin. And I think that's probably the best thing that the Eagles have done draft-wise other than Jalen Rager. But otherwise, signing off for now. Have a great day, Birds, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for the phone call. The quarterback factory. Oh, that is so hysterical to me. It's embarrassing to say that. It really is. What they should have said was, this is a wide receiver factory. Not only a wide receiver factory, but a lethal speed wide receiver factory, because that's all they got now, baby. They went from the slowest offense this team has ever seen, or this organization has ever seen, or this league has ever seen, to one of the most crazy fast teams. Let's see if it actually relates to anything, though. I guess that's a big part of this, too. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.